Hello there YouTube, today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of my song Dino.
Dubstep is just fucking dinosaur shit.
So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the song structure. Basically it's sort of the general dubstep song structure with a couple changes to it. I start with an intro that's sort of, I think, 16 bars long. Yeah, 4, 8, 12, 16, yeah, 16 bar intro. Then I have this breakdown part which goes to here, and then the build, which are each 8 bars. And then the drop is divided into 3 sections. There's part A, which is this. There's part B, which is here, and then part C, which is here. Each part is 16 bars. Or sorry, part A, part B, part A again, and then there's part C here, which is like a variation or just sort of, I guess sort of something different, so it's not just A, B, A, B, it's A, B, A, C, so it has like this variation in it, and sort of like a breakdown before the breakdown type thing. And and then the second main drop is a 2-step variation of this one, and that is right here, and it's essentially the same thing with a couple edits to the bass line and 2-step drums, and then that leads into A again, and then it goes B, and then part D. So and then part D here, if you're familiar with the song, is the part with the guitar at the end, and then it's just a main outro right there. So that's the structure of the song. I know that one person on Facebook wanted to know about that, so that's basically what it is. And I'll probably divide this tutorial into 2 parts, maybe 3, and right now I'm going to be talking about the bass line and the synths and that whole thing. So we'll go to part A and we'll look at the synths right now. We can just take a listen to it.
Dubstep is just fucking dinosaur shit.
Alright, so that section that I just played repeats once more, then it goes to part B, except with some variations in the drums, obviously, in these little, like, medley, weird little interlude things. And I'll get into why I have those in a second. The main synth that I use for pretty much everything in this part of the drop is Razor by Native Instruments, which runs out of the reactor player. The only disadvantage with the synth is that it takes a long time to load, and like I'll be waiting for 10 or 15 minutes for a project to open because of all the instances of reactor. So that's the only disadvantage, but other than that, it's like a really, really amazing synth, and you can get some pretty unique sounds out of it. And all the orange parts are all the layers of the same synth. So if we look at, well, not the same synth, but they make up one synth sound. So if we look at the main part of this synth, it sounds like this. And then eventually, I either took that and built off it, made a different patch, or found a completely different patch to make a different articulation of that bass. So then I added this layer to it. I also added this layer. And this. So altogether, these patches sound like this. And that makes the initial hit of the bass, of the drop. And all of these bass patches, including everything else here in part A, they have an EQ with at least 100 and 110 cut down, because otherwise all of this bass from the synth patches would be conflicting with the sine wave right here. So we don't want that to happen, and that's why the bass is cut out here. And all of the synth patches here, everything that makes up the bass line is sent to a bus, the bass bus, so I can control the volume of the whole bass line with just one fader. So if we listen to the song and I put this at 0, it's important organizational technique is to send things that are grouped together to the same bus. That way, it's easier to control the volume of things. So, say you think that the basses are a little too loud or the drums are a little too quiet, you can just change one fader instead of like doing each one individually, which would be a big instead of doing each one individually, which would be a really big pain. And then on the initial hit, when everything comes in, I have these parts which are part of the lead synths, but they help sort of make a larger impact. An 8-bit lead that I made, a vibrato synth, and a church choir with reverb and delay. And the reverb is sidechained, so it gets sort of like that pumping effect. So those are the different elements that make up the bass line. And actually the most important one is the subs. And to make that, all I'm really using is the ES2. I'm making a sine wave, one an octave down, one an octave higher, and then just the percentage. I don't want to move it, but I think it's at 17% this oscillator and 83% this one. So oscillator 1. And that's just to get a little bit layer of the second octave so that it punches through at the higher frequencies around 100 and under. Because mostly everything in the subs is around here, but if you put in a little bit of a second octave, some of it touches up here, so you get like a little bit of a thicker sound. And I think that really helps. And then I have a enveloper that just gives a little bit more attack, gives a little bit of a punch when it comes in, and then a compressor acting on the kick and the snare, so that when the kick and snare happen, the subs duck and they sound like this. And then for this particular synth patch right here, sort of dinosaur sound, I made a separate sine wave that has that same articulation. So it sort of matches it and makes it fit the bass line better. But otherwise, I just made the notes fit the rest of the bass line, like so. Alright, how much time? Alright, I have some time. I'm going to make these like 10 or 12 minutes each, probably, so. An important thing... Alright, so let's talk about these little breaks that I have. An important part that, or an element that I want to include in my dubstep songs in particular is contrast, which is really important. So when you have a drop that's like almost all constant bass and like constant really loud sounds, if at the end of an 8-bar amount of time you have this small like 4-count transition. Oh, sorry, this is 8-bar. You have a 1-bar little transition point that sort of cuts the bass out, gives a little contrast to the song, so it sort of leads into the next one. And what I do is I go through my numerous sample banks and find little odd sounds and things that I can modulate and do all kinds of weird stuff too. And one of those sounds that I found that was really cool was this sort of like drone-y robot sound, and then I put some automation on it and I made this at the end. So it's just sort of like that creepy sort of glitchy sound. And then on top of that, I have coupled synths that act as a sort of leading into the next part. So they duck in volume and then they come back in to make the sort of the next part hit harder than it would have if it had just been constant bass through the whole thing. And it makes the song go like this. So it hits and then it goes down a little bit, and then the tension is brought up and then it hits again. So it's just sort of like constant change, which is good, I think. So if you look at the volume, one starts full volume, goes all the way down, and then this one starts full and then ducks and then comes back up. So that gives that sort of leaning into the next part. And if you listen, they definitely do really help sort of transition. And that one I had after a 4-bar section. So I had this one at the end of an 8-bar section, this one at the end of a 4-bar, just because I felt like having more variety was good. And this one, I actually used the preset Classic Techno from the ES2 and put a ring shifter on it, which is a really cool effect. And then I had it built in with auto filter and volume as well. So these are just samples right here that I found from my numerous sample banks that I used, which I put some odd reverb, flanger, and a bit crusher on this snare sample, which made a really cool effect. And this little laser sound is cool too. So these are the kind of things that make like a song have more interest and be like a lot more involved. I mean, if it were the same thing over and over again, I would have gotten kind of sick of making it because there wouldn't be any variety. Or if I were a listener, I would have gotten sick of listening to it because it was just the same thing over and over. So if these little transitions are put in there, which can be made pretty easily, then it really helps make the song much more interesting. In the breakdown section, you don't need that as much, but in the main drop, I think they really do help. And then also changing them up, like later in the song, in the second copy of part A over here, I have another one of those fill things. Sounds like this. And what that is these are just toms from a drum sampler by Native Instruments that I put a bit crusher on to get that effect, which sounded really cool. And it's just something you wouldn't really expect, like toms with a bit crusher, but it's the things that like that you try just for the fun of it that make making music fun and interesting. There's another one of the little sections right there. I use these little rises and little samples and panning and that type of thing. And variations in drums, too, really make songs interesting. Because if it's the same drums, like, I mean, it can work if you have, like, kick, snare, and so forth. But if you put some variation, I think it helps a lot. And part of the reason why a lot of dubstep producers put kick and snare just sort of on the 1 and the 3, is because they are on the 1 and the 2, like. Or I guess 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1 and 3. Sorry. I think the reason why they do that is because when they have the subs, like the sine wave, ducking to the kick, if they have multiple kicks in the span of a bar, then it'll be ducking a lot, so it'll have like this side chaining effect, which you don't really want that much in dubstep. Like you could want that, definitely want that in electro, if you want the subs to like duck and sort of move with the tempo of the song. But in dubstep, if that happens too much and you have if you have a longer release on the compressor, it'll sort of make this pretty drastic ducking effect that's noticeable if it happens multiple times in a bar. But if it happens just on the first hit, then it's not that noticeable. And I think that's why a lot of producers do that. But if you have a quick enough release and the compressor's tight enough, I think that you can get away with having multiple kicks in the spans of a bar. So, yeah, I think for next time, let me know in the comments what you want me to talk about next time as it relates to this song, because I'll definitely do another version of another edition of this. And I'll talk more about this song next time. I have like 15 minutes in. So, yeah, let me know in the comments what you think I should do, and I will definitely address it. These videos like take a long time because I definitely get into explaining a lot, but yeah, thanks for watching, and if you have the EP, thanks for grabbing it. I'll put the link in the description if you haven't yet. It's on SoundCloud and Bandcamp, and Bandcamp's name your own price, and SoundCloud's obviously free. So yeah, let me know what you think of the tutorial, or the walkthrough, I guess, and leave suggestions for what you want for next time. Thanks for watching.
Dubstep is just fucking dinosaur shit.